Have you ever hit a sewing slump where no projects, no fabrics, no patterns could even get you inspired to sew? Yeah, I know, I've been there too. So what I did was I had to go back to my old fabric stash, my old pattern stash to actually get creative to actually sew because my sojo was gone. So what I had to do was go back to what brings me joy, and that's fabric and patterns because we collect them all the time. So I'm going to share with you guys how going back to your old stash of both patterns and fabric can get your sojo back. So if that's some content you would like to see, please continue to watch. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. You know what it is. I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I dived back into my old patterns as well as my old fabrics from my stash and how I got my sojo back just by doing so. So let's go ahead and talk about the tips that I did in order to get it back. Starting with taking an uninspired pattern and become inspiring. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So first, let me be honest. I was in a serious sewing slump. Nothing was inspiring me. No new project ideas, no motivation to sit at the sewing machine. It felt like I lost my sojo completely. And we've all been there, right? So I would scroll through patterns and fabrics online, but nothing sparked joy. It was frustrating because I love sewing and sharing the process like you guys know that I do all the time, but I couldn't seem to get that creativity spark back. I had so many patterns laying around, and the more I looked at them, the more overwhelming I felt. So I was so close to taking all of these patterns back to the store or at least taking a long sewing break until I realized something. Maybe the inspiration was looking for what wasn't online or in something new, but already sitting right in front of me in my own fabric and pattern stash. So I had to go and dive into that fabric and pattern stash in order to see what patterns that has been on my to sew list for a very long time and I haven't sewn them yet. There's a long list, all right? But I had to go and do that in order to get my sojo back. So let's talk about the second tip. So one day I sat down, opened up my fabric stash, and started pulling out fabrics that I hadn't touched in months, maybe even years. And let me tell you, it was like opening a treasure chest. I had completely forgotten about some of these fabrics, like this beautiful floral print I bought during Christmas 2022 from House of Mommy Watson, but never got around to it or got around to using it at all. So when I pulled it out, I immediately remember why I bought it in the first place. The colors, the texture, everything about it was golden, solid, and everything else. Suddenly, ideas started flowing. So I thought, why haven't I used this yet? And before I knew it, I was pairing patterns with the fabric for new ideas for dresses, skirts, and pants, just to name a few that I could make from the fabrics I already own. So by revisiting my fabric stash, I was able to reconnect with the materials that first inspired me to sew. It reminded me of the excitement I felt when I first bought these fabrics. And that alone was enough to spark my creativity. So if you're in a slump, I recommend pulling out your fabrics and really taking time to go through them. You might rediscover some hidden gems that you didn't know that you had in your fabric stash, because that's one of the first things that you should do before you start any project. You should definitely go to your fabric stash, see if you have something in your stash that could pair very well with the pattern, which we'll get over to the patterns after going through my fabric stash. I went to my pattern stash as well, but you definitely want to look at a fabric you want to use and then pick the pattern. I kind of do it that way instead of pattern then fabric. I tend to do fabric then pattern instead of the other way around. After searching through my fabric stash, I went to my pattern stash. Yes, I did. And let me tell you, next up was my pattern stash. I've accumulated quite a mess. and quite a massive amount of patterns that's in my stash for over a decade and a half. And some changed, some I've used, and some I haven't even opened. Some I gave away, some I had a pattern sale. And before you ask me when's the next pattern sale, I'm gonna tell you, I don't know. Because to be honest, it's kind of like one of those things where you wanna have a sale, but getting photos up, shipping, patterns or whatnot. I'm gonna have a sale, and I'll probably have a sale by the end of the year, but that's not my main focus right now. But I'll probably do a pattern sale by the end of the year, so stay tuned for that. So getting back into the patterns. So I decided to take another deep dive into my pattern collection. I started flipping through older patterns, and there it was. It was this vintage inspired set, Vogue 1966 pattern that I bought a little while ago but never made it. I had forgotten how much I love the design. I love the button down shirt. I love the pants. The pants are a little on the wide leg side, and it's a 1970s pattern. And I love a good 1970s pattern. So I dug it out of my stash and began cutting the pattern to use as part of my blues board. So seeing that pattern again immediately sparked new project ideas. I thought about pairing it with one of the fabrics I had rediscovered earlier, and suddenly I had a whole new vision for a project that combined old fabrics into something fresh and exciting. So sometimes we get so caught up in buying new patterns and buying new fabric that we actually forget the treasures we already have in our stash. So going back through my patterns reminded me of all the possibilities that had been sitting there waiting for me. So it was like giving myself permission to be inspired again without feeling like I needed to buy something new. Because, you know, every time patterns come out, we feel like we have to not only buy the pattern, but also buy fabric to go with it. Whereas you could buy the pattern because it's new and just came out, and you could just go to your stash and just find some fabric from your stash that we all been hoarding. And I'm saying we as in not only me, but you too. Don't act like you don't know. Okay, so we are some fabric hoarders. I am both. And listen, I am honest about mine to where you guys know I have tons of patterns. I have tons of fabric, and not only this year, but moving into 2025, my main goal is to utilize as much fabric in my stash as possible. All right. Now, so after pulling the pattern out, pulling the fabric out, rediscovering some amazing patterns that I already had, I had an idea. Why not combine the old with the new? So I took that vintage pant pattern and paired it with a fabric I hadn't used yet. And suddenly I had a whole new project that felt fresh and exciting. It wasn't just about creating something new. It was about using what I already had in a way that felt fresh and new to me. So getting back to sewing didn't feel like a chore anymore. It felt like I had a renewed sense of purpose. And the best part is this: I didn't need to spend any more of my coins to do so, all right? So I didn't spend any more money. I just went back, revisit my stash. I was able to rediscover my love for sewing without the pressure of finding something new. The pressure of going out to Joann, standing in line, spending some more money to hoarder on to the fabric and the patterns like I've been doing. So I was able to just get something that's not so old, but not so new, because I think Vogue 1966 came out, if I recall, last year. But the fabric that I had looked at it for, I picked up about 2-3 years ago. It is a blue poplin fabric. So that's what I did there. So if you're feeling stuck in a sewing slump, I highly recommend taking a good long look at your patterns, taking a good look at your fabric. You might be surprised at how much creativity is just waiting to be rediscovered. Sometimes the inspiration you need isn't in something new, it's in something you already have. So I hope this video gave you some ideas of what you can do. Go back to your pattern, go back to your fabric stash, see how you compare patterns and fabric together. So if this video was educational, inspiring, and fun, please do not forget to give me double thumbs up, homie. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And let's keep this conversation going in the comment section below. Let me know, do you pick your pattern first or do you pick your pattern first? Fabric or pattern? Which one do you pick when you're selecting a project? I would like to know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, and stay tuned for my next video as I share with you what are some of the small projects that you can do when you lose your sojo in order to get you back into that sewing game again. So stay tuned for that. Until next time. Keep sewing.
Come through like what's good, these wigs getting split. Man better breeze than sprint, it's long if I choose to bite down on these pricks. X is a lyrical 4-4 of this, so make sure it's X that you wanna rally with. I'll make a big man turn to a kid. Shout out skull when I splat out wigs. Never seeing X's with your eyes closed, don't move past girls behind your eyelid. Bars and flows, check out their mixture. Tell them man can't handle the fix.